Okay. All right. Next short little video. Try to give you a bunch of things to hopefully study and review, and things we can cover or not cover or kind of cover or sort of cover. So I got the tie on to make it look official. But today's topic, or the next topic, is Margaret Thatcher. All right. Basically, a few things right here you can read on your own who Margaret Thatcher was. All right. Austerity, that's the big thing to remember about her, the word austerity. Look for austerity, think about austerity. When I'm all done with this next part over here, make sure you can explain that term. Okay, so associate her term, two terms with austerity. A couple other pretty simple things right here, English, so on and so forth, you can figure it out. So the what is, what did she do? All right, what did she do? What did she do? There we go. All right, I'm not going to redo this one. We're just going to keep going with it. Privatization. All right, so the big thing for Margaret Thatcher, what she did during the late 79, she really comes to power in the early 80s, is privatization. What you have to remember is it was really, really harsh economic times. She comes to power following what is called the winter of discontent. And she is going to inherit a very, very weak economy. The 1970s were really, really tough. Really, really tough economically for lots of people. So what she's going to do is launch these programs of austerity. She is going to cut lots of spending, lots of government spending on lots of things that people had gotten in order to improve the economy. You had really high inflation, you had decent in terms of high numbers of unemployment, and you had pretty bad economic times in the 70s. So she is going to launch austerity programs like this to try to reduce government spending, to try to get England out of this bad economy. All right? So by privatization, she's going to sell off a lot of what the government owned. She's going to sell off things like electricity. It used to be the government owned and ran all the electrical companies. Well, what she's going to do is sell them off to a bunch of private businesses. Sounds good for private businesses, but what are they in it for? They're in it for making money. They're in it for trying to get rich. So she's going to not just sell it all to one, she's going to break it up into pieces, and you're going to have competition amongst different companies to sell electricity. So the bad news is it's private and they can do it for profit. The good news is it's multiple different businesses, so obviously there's competition which keeps the prices low. So initially people are bothered because the government wasn't in it to make money. They fear private business will. It turns out to be halfway decent because of the competition part I've already talked about. Housing's interesting. There was lots of government-owned housing. And what she does is she tries to sell it to people. If you've been renting this government-owned apartment for the last 10 years, she will sell it to you. Her or their government will sell it to you. It sounds tough. We're not going to subsidize it. We're not going to pay for it anymore. But the good news is you can buy it. You can buy it and you own it. And owning homes or apartments or whatever turns out to make a lot of people feel good about themselves. So a lot of these things are very controversial. A lot of these things bother people. A lot of these things turn out to actually be pretty good. So conservative politics that are very hard and tough and create a lot of austerity issues or tough times. Austerity is reducing spending, but they turn out to be a pretty smart move. These things here, a little bit more debatable. The English have had public health care provided by the government since 1908. Public schools earlier than that. The housing we just talked about right here. She's going to reduce spending on all of those. These measures are controversial, turn out to probably be pretty decent. These measures are controversial, turn out to be not so exciting. People aren't so excited about it. More controversial because they continue to cause problems. We're still having the healthcare debate today. All right. She's also going to go after unions. She's going to weaken unions and make it so that the business owners can hire people and not have to pay as much. All right. She's going to reduce the power of unions. In her first 2 years, unemployment's going to jump. It's going to more than double. Inflation will also rise. Unions go on strike. There's a very famous coal strike, lasts for like 6 months. She doesn't give in. She doesn't help them at all. They end up quitting, going back, and getting no concessions. So she's also going to go after unions and try to weaken unions and do what she can to help business people make money. A very conservative idea. Her era here is also a big jump in IRA, Irish Republican Army. Lots more attacks, lots more going after different English people and English power, the Irish wanting independence. They won't get it until 98. It's the same home rule we had, same home rule debate we had during the World War I unit. All right, and then the Falkland Island War, I'll talk about that here on the next slide. So this won't be solved until the late 90s. She will not solve it. It's going to see a spike in what happens with the IRA attacks. All right, so why do we care? Why do we care about this? And again, this is a short video. There's a lot more I would talk about. The first reason we care is right here. She's a great contrast in the 80s to this guy named Francois Mitterrand. He's the French guy. He's going to be the complete opposite of austerity. He's going to spend a ton of money. And it's a great comparison because if you're a socialist, France doesn't do well. If you're a conservative, England does a lot better. So why do we care? What you should know more about is this 1980s contrast. Do we spend more money to end this recession, which is what the 80s had, 70s, 80s had, or do we cut spending? Well, it worked better in England where they cut spending. This is another reason why we care. These welfare measures, as I talked about on the last slide, will go back to the 1800s. 1908 with welfare are cut. They're dismantled. Still having that debate today in lots of different places. All right. We also care. These two kind of go together. That one should have popped up first. My mistake. This recession of the 70s into the 80s, we're going to care about how people dealt with it. We've already talked about Mitterrand. We've already talked about how he spent money and it didn't really work. All right. So the last thing, interesting thing, is the Falkland Islands War, 1982. Why people like Thatcher, and she's compared a lot to Ronald Reagan, is she was a nationalist. So way down here off of Argentina is the Falkland Islands. There's more sheep than people. It's a strategic location for sailing around the globe. It goes back to, I want to say, the 1600s. Well, they revolt. They demand independence. They don't want to be a part of the United Kingdom anymore. So does she let it go? Absolutely not. She sends the Navy down there. Bombs the Falkland Islands for a little bit, they quit. It's like a couple hours war. It actually lasts probably a week or two by the time the Navy sails down there, but she's not letting it go. She's not backing down. She's going to keep it. She's the Iron Lady. She's tough. She's going to go after the Falkland Islands and all its sheep, and she's going to cut spending if she has to, and she's going to do what she needs to do. All right? So you saw in her death in the early 2000s lots of cartoons. What I would like you to think about right here is, why would you do this? Okay? Everybody dies, they look up, God bless her. Well, this guy's coming back with, oh, really? You sure you're looking in the right direction? Why? Why would they do this? Think about that. All right? It's also kind of key to look at the source down here. Chattanooga, Tennessee. Political cartoon put in the paper in the early 2000s when she dies. You know, how biased is this? People in England probably feel stronger, or, well, they probably feel stronger either way. There's a lot of people, conservatives, that say absolutely. A lot of socialists, a lot of liberals, a lot of poor people, absolutely. So just think about the point of view. How accurately is he representing the people back in England? I would actually say probably pretty accurately, if you think about how one side's happy, one side's not. All right, so that's real quick. Little history, Margaret Thatcher, little review. Like again, it's just a review. It doesn't cover everything, but it covers a lot. All right.